So I'm really happy to be here with our editor, journal editor, Laurie Glenn, to discuss the most recent RCHM journal. It was released, about a month ago, I think it was. And sometimes when that initial email announcement goes out, it can get lost a little bit in everyone's inboxes. So we thought we'd make a nice video where we talk a little bit about some of the inside information about how the journal got put together, some of the discussions with the authors, and our general impressions and insights on each article. So without further ado, I'll bring up the journal and we can get started. So here's the front cover. So Laurie, what was the thinking about the front cover this time, the image we chose?
So this is interesting because the picture is always the last thing that goes, and we try to keep it somewhat in frame with the season and whatnot. And I tend to panic and then have to find a photo, but Tony Harrison has so many of them. And I loved this one because it's just so simple and seemed to match the season. But it's, we're always plugging for the journal, but this too, people take so many pictures and we're always looking for beautiful ways of looking at our plants. And this just seemed to really do the trick from
Beautiful.
the Bristol herb garden itself.
So going through it, this is your editorial here, which we invite everyone to read. And we'll go on to the first article. So this is talking about Tony. This is his part 2 of growing a Chinese herb garden, focusing on shrubs. I'm sure everyone knows that Tony is behind the Bristol Chinese Herb Garden. And he's really one of our leading horticulture experts.
Yes.
So yes, maybe Laurie, you can give us some idea about how this came together and your feelings.
Yes. Well, I love this because it's a series and we've had a lot of good feedback on this one. Just people are so excited about it. And Tony has a beautiful way of, especially for myself, because full reveal, I don't grow any herbs myself, but after reading this, I felt like, wow, I actually think I could do this. And it made me feel like there's a way in, and Tony gives it to you. He makes you feel comfortable about your understanding of how you could really do this and how it would work. So I love it. And his pictures are just beyond phenomenal.
Absolutely. One of my main teachers in Taiwan, he's always on at me saying that I'm not really going to understand Chinese medicine until I learn how to grow things. But Tony makes it feel so achievable. I really like this one passage here about the taste of goji berries, because I was fortunate enough to visit Tony in Bristol, and not just go to the Bristol Chinese Herb Garden, but go to the Tony Harrison personal garden, where he's got a lot of fantastic plants. And I was able to taste his fresh goji berries, which he says the taste of fresh goji berries is much more dynamic and vital compared to the dried. They have a sharp, astringent initial burst of flavor, followed by a sweet, lingering aftertaste, similar to the dry product. It's one of the few Jing tonics we have in the Materia Medica, with a focus on protecting and supporting liver function. So, and then he relates it to the chemistry, which is really one of Tony's unbelievable strengths, that he has the horticulture knowledge, the Chinese medicine practitioner knowledge, but also the chemical knowledge. And it's very unique to have someone who can speak to all of those aspects.
Actions.
So moving on to the next article, which is also garden themed. This was a report of the study day from the Bristol Chinese Herb Garden.
And the lovely Wendy Howden stepped up to write this. For people who don't know Wendy, she's just this heart-flowing bundle of joy. And she did such a nice way of making people who couldn't make it, including myself, feel like we were part of this really important, I think, day for all of us, which sounded lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. I was there on a day, and it was our first major in-person event since COVID, unbelievably. And there was a real special energy in the air, just being able to come together in the garden, see each other in person, and share that space. Not to mention the dedication of the window to past president Emma Farrant, and her sisters were there, very moving moment, a moving speech from them. And to see the garden in bloom and to have fantastic lectures from both our Tonys, Tony Harrison and Tony Booker. Just the caliber, not only of the lectures, but the people in the room. Everything about the weekend was great. And we're planning more Bristol Chinese Herb Garden Days for 2024. So watch this space on that one.
I think that's great. And I think, for people to know that they can go and do these things with Tony. I mean, I did it a few years ago, and it's worth your time. And I think every time I've heard someone has gone there, magically the sun shines for you. So there you go.
Yeah, again, as I say, I'll move a little bit further on, but brilliant photos here as well from the day as well. So
yeah,
if you want to see the
yeah.
Chinese herb garden. Just to let you know, on our permanent member video collection, I've uploaded a personal video of my walking all around the garden with a Chinese erhu track in the background. So that's in the permanent video collection you can watch right away. So then we have this approach to digestive problems using Jingfang classical herbalism, 2 cases by Fran Turner. I am amazingly biased about this because I've studied Jingfang with Fran, and genuinely I think that Fran is one of the best teachers, not just Chinese herbal teachers, but one of these best Chinese medicine teachers in the country. So we're really lucky to have her as a member, and the work that she's doing there. But I'm interested to hear what your impression, Laurie, was from someone who maybe is not a student of Jingfang. What was your feeling?
I mean, this is exciting for me, and it's funny because when you do editing, when someone gives you a piece, you're doing a lot of back and forth emailing because you go from draft to draft to draft to make sure you're happy with it, and that they're happy with it. But with this piece, I said to her, it's taken me so long because every time I would go to edit it, I would be reading it, like really reading it, because I was like, oh, this information is so important, and I'm learning from this so much, even though it's not my style. So I had to keep putting it down and stepping away from the knowledge in it, because it's just such a well-written piece, and the way she thinks about the herbs and the medicine is just outstanding.
But Fran is an incredibly clear thinker, and I just feel clearer every time I go to one of her classes. So it's brilliant to have this represented in the journal. So thank you, Fran. Yes, and from one star to a rising star, we have article by Anthony O'Connor. I got to know Anthony a little bit over the last year or two, and it's so nice to see some people coming up from in our community who are so dedicated on so many fronts to the public image of Chinese medicine, communicating with the public, to working on the supply side and documenting the supply side. And then this article pops up and I realized that Anthony is a absolutely fantastic practitioner with really incredible insight into the medicine. And that's going to be reflected on the UK TATM course that he's involved in developing, that's going through accreditation at the moment. It's very nice to see this article on Banshao Herbal Tang, which many of us think of kind of like a cough formula or a phlegm formula, which it can be used for that, but there's so much more to it, isn't there, Laurie?
There's a lot to this piece, and there's a lot to him. I mean, he's someone who's familiar information. So when it came time to write this, he was so open to do anything, and this comes through in his work because he talks about a patient that he worked on this formula with, and then they kind of disappeared, and there's this humility in it. And as a herbalist that I've had that happen to me, you don't know, did it work, didn't it? But he just keeps moving on. He keeps working with a formula that he believes in.
And Banshao Herbal Tang
really love.
Yes, and Banshao Herbal Tang originally was a formula for psychological disorders, which is quite interesting. So bringing that idea through, and Anthony is someone who he helps out with so many little things around the RCHM, and someone you can always rely on to help with all our efforts. So great to see him represented here. And then this book review on female infertility and female reproducibility and reproductive gynecology, comprehensive clinical manual of integrated Chinese medicine and biomedicine. It's written by a long friend of mine, James Mutkin. I've known him since I've been a member in the RCHM. James is incredibly accomplished clinician. He's not just done Chinese medicine, but a full functional medicine course. And he's also a great cook as well. He and I together curated our first conference, the first conference that I ran. It was myself and James and Emma back then who did that. And we did it around dietary therapy. So James is a great cook too. So I'm really pleased to see him contribute to the journal. And I know that he's a very incisive person. So it's a great choice for a reviewer. Laurie, what was your experience with this?
Well, two things. One is I love the book reviews, so I encourage people to bring them our way because they're so helpful. And I think this one was great. And in all honesty, I hadn't been keen on women's health. I took it off my website for a bit, but I read this article and I went and bought the book and I fell in love with it. And I bought it, working up, it's worked up my confidence to go back to it, which has been great. And I think he does such a good job of why he liked it and why it's helpful, and sold me on the book. So that's really handy because it gives practitioners an understanding of, is this right for me, and how do I work with this? So
well, I'm really pleased to hear that.
Job letting us know.
Yeah, that it's a really useful book. So I think that again, yeah, it's important to highlight really good work in our community.
Yeah.
And finally, our very own national treasure, an interview with Michael McIntyre. I'm sure most of our community know, but Michael has made enormous contributions to the field of Chinese herbal medicine and with the RCHM over the years, and an amazing wealth of knowledge. So it's really lovely that we have this feature with Michael. But Laurie, you were the interviewer, so what was your experience interviewing Michael?
It was amazing. I went to his clinic, and I'm not a writer, I'm an editor, and so this was a big step for me, but it was just a blissful day. And I think sitting with Michael, who has been at this for years and years and just is so humble and so joyful, and he is a real cheerleader for everyone to do our medicine and do it their way, that makes them feel like they're contributing and not be afraid to just dive in. And I mean, I was so nervous at first. I asked one question and he could tell how nervous I was, and he just said, "Shall I just talk a little bit?" And I was like, "Yes, please." Felt like a kid in a candy store, but it was amazing. And I think anyone who wants to write a piece like this to interview another practitioner is just a lovely way in for all of us to learn about other people's journey in Chinese medicine.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, we're always looking for ideas, submissions, authors. This is an article, it's a journal for our community, by our community. So the caliber of our community is incredible, which is why the quality of the journal is so high, as well as having a brilliant editor, Laurie. Please, if you do have ideas for submissions or would like to contribute, please contact Laurie. We'll put details maybe below this video and in the email that it goes out with. So the final thing is we just want to show you how to access the journal. Either you can follow the link and with the username and password in the email you received, or if you're watching this video elsewhere, just log into your member section. And in the member section, you'll see the username and password for the journal site. Journal site is journal.rchm.co.uk. And here you can see we log in. And as we log in, you can now see the journals. The current issue is here. You can download the full issue on PDF with this button, or you can download it article by article. One thing that we really want to highlight is we've got our entire archive here. It's an incredible resource. And so here are the most recent issues, all listed. You can click into them. You can view all the articles there. And you can also use our search function. So I can search, for example, for my name and see what comes up. And there are the 4 articles that I've contributed to the RCHM. So you can search by author. And we've also inserted some keywords in there as well. So you'll be able to search by some of those too.
I think that's nice, Alex, if I can add, because even like when I wrote this interview, because I had never done it before, I searched interviews and read what other people were doing and how they were laying it out. So if you've never written an article and you want to do something specific, have a look through here, see what people have done in the past, and boost your confidence a little bit to dive in.
Absolutely. So with that, just want to say thank you to Laurie for all of her hard work. And yeah, please do just drop us a line if you want to give us some feedback, if you want to make a submission yourself. We're always really happy to hear from you.